Who wouldn't get out of Raqqa if they could? They've left behind homes with no water or power, schools and hospitals in ruins. For 3 long years they endured the vicious rule of Islamic State, Daesh as they call it. Now the slow, painful daily battle to defeat the jihadis has forced them to leave.
البارحة لحد الآن البارحة المساء ضربونا بالهواء. البارحة المساء عالجرية بيها ساكنة. طلعنا ورجعنا عدة مرات، وكل ما نرجع على بيوتنا يضربون نطلع. أنا راح لي ولد شهيد عمره 12 سنة.
They're going to look for work elsewhere, wondering if anything will be left of their homes when they return. We drove the other way, towards Raqqa, passing Western special forces engaged on the ground more than they like to say, into the city outskirts, the uneasy hinterland of war, held by largely Kurdish forces. The fighters have American vehicles, but they're only lightly armed. In this battlefield, American airstrikes make the decisive difference. More than 3,000 since June, the pace increasing, 400 already this month. We went in further, past the debris of people's homes and lives. The fighters are closing in from the east and the west, but the Islamic State militants, they're still in the center of Raqqa. Around here it's ruins, but there are civilians. No one seems to know exactly how many. The Islamic State militants are using them as human shields, and they can also fall victim to coalition airstrikes. The fighters took us to a vantage point. It's taken them 3 months to get this far. They advance building by building, foot patrols following airstrikes, squeezing their enemy into an ever smaller space.
همجي وصلت كمان دل بلوم بشويجي دشين هوال خلاص جبهة أبش خونزي 400 متر نزا يعني نهاجي ريشها شاطشمها أجر.
Fighters hurtle towards the front line. The Syrian Democratic Forces were formed just to fight the Islamic State. They're focused on the mission. The forward operating base is crude, to say the least. It smells of rotten food. The men sleep where they fight. This is guerrilla-style warfare, the primitive counterpart to the high-tech drones and state-of-the-art missiles deployed by the Americans. They haven't yet made safe all the booby traps the IS militants left behind in the building. Danger is always inches away. Comrades arrive from a position even further forward. They need food, water, cigarettes. Some days they push the militants back, some days not. Anyway, today they're still alive. A fighting patrol. The men know they may not all make it back. They have to dash across the alleyway, all of them. The IS sniper missed his target, but the next man to cross may not be so lucky. So one fighter lights the fuse and throws an improvised grenade. Smoke provides cover so they can run across. One tiny fragment of the long battle in the capital of the caliphate, fighting alleyway by alleyway, until the desperate cruelty of the Islamic State is obscured by time, and Raqqa can rise again from the rubble. But where are the people? Some who've managed to escape are on the outer edges, lives like the city in ruins. Ibrahim Salah is grateful to the fighters. Time won't restore the sight he lost in one eye when an Islamic State bomb factory blew up by accident. nor erase the memory of their capricious rule.
يا خاني بنت اختي شافوها على الباب طارف لباسها لونه احمر فاتم واخذ من نسيبي دفعوه 15,000 ليره سوري وهانوه وضربوه وخلوه يشتغل عامل عندهم بالبلديه اسبوع كامل لا اجار ولا شيء وزلمه كبير بالعمر.
But at least one man we met, fleeing with his family, said they lived perfectly happily under Islamic State, seeing little problem with the restrictions. It's the fighting that's forcing them to leave their homes.
طلعنا من ضرب الطيران يا اخي. ضرب طيران جاي ضرب الطيران طلعنا من الطيران تدمير ما بيه. ضرب كل يوم تيجي لا على التاريخ. هاي انشتلت واحدة من زوجاتي وانشتلت من قلبي هذه في عائلات كاملة ماتت.
Some are just victims of the whole disastrous mess, fighting, airstrikes, Daesh.
شنو يعني والله حاكم علينا كله وخذ البيت منا وقعد بيه كنا قاعدين بخيمة والحستينا ما جت الطيارة ضربت ولا لقى نريد عاد شيء نقعد بيه. من اللي أخذ؟ خذوا الدواحشة خذوا أولي وقعد بيه وجت الطيارة وضربتهم وكانوا هم قاعدين بيه.
So they leave Raqqa to the fighters and the remnants of the Islamic State. And when that battle's over, there'll be another, for who will rule the rubble of the homes they've left behind.
And that report from Lindsey Hilsum was filmed by Soren Munk and produced by Thom Walker. And Lindsey is still in Syria. Lindsey, the fighters you are with say that they can take the place in a month. Do you think that's possible?
Well, it depends how reckless they are and how much attention they pay to human life. It was really noticeable how young those fighters were, some as young as 17. But also, what about the coalition? We are told the United Nations thinks there's 20 to 25,000 civilians in that tiny pocket, not allowed to leave, held as human shields by Islamic State. You know, they could bomb them to bits tomorrow, but that means a lot of death, a lot of civilians dying. The Russians are doing the same thing in a place called Deir ez-Zor, which is also partly held by Islamic State. They were reported today to have killed dozens of civilians with airstrikes around the Euphrates River. So that is the calculation which they're making. We saw quite a lot of American and British special forces. They don't like to be filmed, but they're there on the ground. They're guiding the fighting to some extent, calling in airstrikes. They can finish it tomorrow if they want. But what will the human cost be?
Lindsey Hilsum in Syria.